From the writings of King Hezekiah, an ode of thanksgiving, a new translation and discussion of Isaiah 38, 8 through 21. We have come to the end of our second reading of first Isaiah. By first Isaiah, we mean chapters 3 through 39, which have long been recognized in critical historical study of the Bible as a text that belongs to the 8th century and that is linked to the historical figure of the prophet Isaiah. The last two chapters, 38 and 39, are distinctly different, being a historical account of events surrounding the illness of King Hezekiah, which we can comfortably date as 703 BCE. In this decidedly prosaic history, an editor has inserted a poem whose eloquence equals the bar set by such earlier poems as chapter 12, "Surely it is God who saves me," and chapter 26, "May your dead live." One of the rewards of a close reading of the text is the discovery of such a deeply personal voice reaching across the ages. This poem is not the work of the editor, as he is not a poet, and he specifically tells us he has taken the poem from the writing of Hezekiah. He does this in verse 8, which serves as the poem's title and identifies it as from the writings of King Hezekiah, king of Judah, when he was ill and restored to life. The term from the writings, makatav, is an unusual reference to an actual writing of a text, and it alerts us to the fact that we're in store for something quite special. I would like to begin by reading my translation of the poem. I would justify my translation by saying that it is attuned to the poetic, while other translations, the King James, the Dure, the RSV, the JPS, are attuned to the interpretation for the sake of serving doctrine. That said, my translation is quite limited in its ability to allow the poem to be heard as it would have sounded when it was performed in Hezekiah's court. Even if my Hebrew were much better than it is, the sound of the original Hebrew poetry is not available. At best, it can only be intuited. After the reading, we will continue with the discussion of the poem, and this will include some remarks of its poetic, its contents, and its contributions to our understanding of first Isaiah. I said to myself in the midst of my days, I shall walk through the gates of Sheol. I shall be confined for the remainder of my years. I said, I will not see Yah in the land of the living. I will not see humans, but be with those who dwell in the shade, among the shades. My roots will be pulled up and rolled up like a tent of a shepherd. I will be cut off from the loom like a braid. I was racked from day to night. You shalom me, and I held out till the dawn. Like a lion harsh, you break all my bones from day to night. You shalom me, and I like a swift or a swallow chirp. I moan like a dove. Heavy are my eyes from looking up. My Lord, my cries enwrap me. Why, I ask, tell me, is it done? Shall I slow walk my remaining years, my soul in bitterness? My Lord, in spite of them, you have caused life, and in them my life, my breath. You have healed me and revived me. See, it is for my benefit that I was so embittered. You lovingly held my soul from the destruction of the pit. For you put all your sins, my sins, behind your back. For indeed Sheol does not give thanks to you. Death does not praise you. One who goes down to the pit does not hope, does not amend you. Life indeed it is, that which thanks you. For as the morn is to the day, As the Father is to the sons, so is giving thanks to you, your man. Yahweh has saved me. I shall sing songs all the day of my life in the house of Yahweh. As I discuss the poem with you, I will refer to a slide in which the Hebrew appears in columns on the left and my translation, the column on the right. You should recall that the Hebrew, as it appears in the famous first century Qumran scroll, or as in the received text as in the Masoretic text, is a continuous line with no capitalization, no punctuation, or line breaks. Here it has been broken into distinct lines that come from the intuitive analysis of sound and sense, which allows us to see the poetic nature of the text. It is printed as we would modern poetry in a series of lines. How in the 8th century a performer could have used this ancient text is linked to the fact that the keeper of the text maintained the oral form as well. Hezekiah's illness occurred in the year 703 BCE. The date is supplied to us by the interest in Hezekiah's death shown by Merodach-Baladan, the king of Babylon. At that time, he was attempting to defend his recent possession of the city of Babylon from the Assyrians. His short-lived success was made possible by the general uprising against the Assyrians, sparked by the death of King Sargon II, and the ignominious defeat of his army in the Anatole. The rebellion in the West, Judah in particular, were welcomed allies. Hezekiah's illness is identified as a boil which must have spread beyond the skin and triggered a systemic complication, as it sometimes can do. And it has come at the worst possible time for the king of Babylon and as well for Judah itself, who is embracing rebellion. The prophet Isaiah's initial prognosis was that the king would die. The account gives one the impression that it was delivered in a rather brusque manner. The king turned his face to the wall, wept and prayed. That was followed by the second opinion. Parallel account in 2 Kings suggests that it came almost immediately due to God answering Hezekiah's prayer, but the Isaiah version leaves it unspecified. The king would live. The specification of 15 years, of course, is a latter amendment after Hezekiah's death in 687. With a new prognosis, Isaiah offers the king a sign, the retrograde move with a shadow on the wall of the stairs. The sign in line 6 was followed by Isaiah's prescription of a fig poultice, line 22. This gap has been caused by the editor's clumsiness in inserting the poem. Identifying the poem as from the writings of Hezekiah, king of Judah, he sets it apart from the way Hezekiah's words are introduced into the text, as we can see from the earlier prayer attributed to him in chapter 38. In this case, we have words from the Hezekiah actually wrote, katav. If this is true, it provides evidence for the literary sophistication of the late 8th century, and we are justified in claiming that Hezekiah is in fact a literary king. The poem contains no discontinuities or add-ons. Poetic units in general resist editing, and their frequent appearance in the Isaiah text is likely due to this. The 14 lines are uninterrupted unity. They divide neatly into 2 units, 8 through 15, 16 through 21. The first unit recounts in its intensely personal manner Hezekiah's suffering. The second unit deals with its recovery and his resolve to give thanks and praise to God for the rest of his life. This poem can be paired with the Psalm 6, who contains the common conceit concerning death and praise, for no one who dies remembers you in Sheol or gives thanks to you. Song 6, however, is not about illness, but about fear of an enemy. The conceit also appears in Psalm 30 and again in Psalm 41. In both cases, that has to do with a life-threatening illness. The Hezekiah poem stands in some kind of relationship with these psalms. The poem, in which the first person unfolds, is cascaded in short lines, some of which consisting of no more than 2 words. This breaks through the traditional verse numbers and results in the lineage that I've indicated in the way I've arranged the text on the slide. The center of the poem is clearly delineated by the complement of the 2 stanzas, each of which addresses the Lord Adonai, and their complement is framed by the contrasting state of being slow walked through one's years with life and breath. The first unit is with the description of the suffering and is slow walking, that is defined in Psalm 43 as walking in a solemn procession. And there it is linked with carrying a burden, dirge-like, funeral march-like. Life is rehearsed as reduced to a slow, painful walking out. In contrast, the following stanza, the years which are full of life and breath. In all of them, the resulting condition is defined by the 2 words, by life, by breath, kai ruaki. The power of those 2 words own the verse. The text is rich with metaphors, a measure of poetic power. His life is rolled up like a shepherd's tent. He chirps like the swallow or a swift. He moans like a dove. His bones are pained as if a lion were gnawing on them. The language is pressed out of its ordinary use and yields the unique insight, including the number of hapaxes, that is, words that occur nowhere else in the Hebrew text. Look at the way the common word shalom in line 12, again in 13, is transformed. The noun is turned into a verb with a causative effect. Ahifel tashalimi, meaning something like, you kept me alive. In the midst of his dying, he has somehow been sustained. The shalom continues in the succeeding verse, where the poet concludes that his suffering has been for his own good. The value of suffering is the common theme in the Isaiah text. Assonance is another important element of the early Hebrew poetry, and it is employed here with great effect. Look at line 17, the word pit, shakat, which is commonly paralleled to Sheol. The poet is reaching at this point for a word that will express the fact that he was somehow saved from the pit. Lots of possible words come into mind, but the poet finds an uncommon word which refers to the way the man takes hold of his wife, lovingly, kashak, that produces the incredible assonance, kashak, shakat, fun and yet laden with the element of love which the poet experiences in relationship to God. Yet another poetic device is the repetition of the words, which creates the elevated sound. See in verse 11, the way Yah, the short form of the name for God, is followed by Yah, which advances the thought to the next line. Another example is the parallel Kai, Ruaki, my life, my spirit, and again in 19th simply Kai, Kai, life, life. And the repetition intensifies the noun life. In the closing line, the poet vows to sing the festival song all the days of his life in the house of the Lord. Well, let us conclude with the note that this poem is a fitting tribute to the 8th century prophetic voice. Those who are interested can find my essay on First Isaiah in the Elder of Omaha. At this point, the 8th century voice suddenly falls silent. The voice of the prophetic school will resume again in the 6th century, at which time the editor-poet, who we refer to as Second Isaiah, will unite the historical narrative, 38 and 39, to the theopoetic argument, 3 through 24. He framed his text by putting a prologue, chapter 2, at the beginning, and in so doing made way for the addition of his new theopoetic text, chapter 40 through 56. 6. These powerful chapters, which began, "Comfort you, my people, comfort you, my people," which are generated by the rise of the Persian Empire, will bring us into the whole next unit of the Isaiah project, Second Isaiah, which we'll soon undertake. And thank you for being with us tonight, and we'll look forward to our future together.